Welcome to the fourth video in the collage project series. In this video, we are going to work on adding our other images to our collage. So you should have collected at least 15 images that we are going to add to the collage. They should all be in a folder and you should have submitted them in Classroom. So now let's add those images to this collage. To do that, let's go ahead and you should have your document open, right? So I will go to File and we'll do Place Embedded for this project. Okay, in here I have some of my images. I don't have 15 yet, but I will have 15. You should have already had 15. So I'll go choose my cupcake and go ahead and hit Place, and I will hit this little check mark to place that in there. Okay, to start out with, it's too big, right? And it has this white background, so I'm going to have to eliminate the white background. Your collage will probably not have that pink background to it. If you remember in the last video, I did that to show you how to clip that adjustment layer to just your image layer. Sometimes it's kind of helpful to have some color in there because if I had placed this, let me show you, if I had placed that cupcake in and my background would have been white, I wouldn't have really noticed that it had a white background to it, but having that color in there is kind of helpful. So you could place some color in there just for now. We are going to change the background later, though, just so you know. Okay, so we are going to mask out the background just like we did with our image layer, so the image of us. To do that, we can choose a selection tool. Again, we worked with those using that when we did our selection tool worksheet. One thing I'm going to show you now that I didn't show you before is a way to select the background and then invert the selection. So if you have an image like this where it has a nice and simple background, it's all one solid color, then this should be pretty easy, and it will be a lot easier than actually making a selection around the outside of your cupcake. You can still do that and it will turn out in about the same way, but I just want to show you this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click once on the background, and in doing that it gets pretty close. I'm losing a little bit of these areas around the edges. So right now, to simplify things, I'm going to invert my selection. Okay, so right now I have selected the background, and what we actually want selected is the object itself. So we need to go to Select and Inverse. We're going to choose the inverse of that selection, and there we go. So now I need to add a little bit of these details around the edges. I need to add those to my selection. To do that, I'm going to choose my lasso tool and this Add to Selection. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Some of your images might work out this way where it's kind of just easier to select the background and then maybe make a few minor adjustments. If you have to do a lot of adjustments, it might be easier to just do the magnetic lasso to start. This one, it looks like I don't know, it's just a few kind of minor things and it should be pretty easy. If you notice that you're trying this way and it's taking too long, then go ahead and try a different way. And part of this project is kind of experimenting with these selection tools and kind of figuring out how they work. I know we did that in selection tool worksheet, but it doesn't hurt to practice some more. There we go. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I think I'll just add just a tiny little bit more. Whoops, I must have clicked somewhere. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out a couple times. There we go. And now I'm just going to hit my mask tool, or my mask button. Okay, that worked out pretty decent. I'm going to have to do the same thing though that I did with myself. I'm going to come in with my paintbrush tool. Somehow it got hidden under my pencil tool, so I'll choose my paintbrush tool. Again, white to reveal, black to conceal. So I need to go over, I'll keep it just perfectly white. I'll zoom back in, kind of pan over. I'm going to go over some of these areas, kind of smooth them out as best I can. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that on my own time. You don't have to watch me do that. The other thing I need to do is I need to resize this guy. So I'm going to just hit Control T on my keyboard, which is free transform, and then I am pressing the Shift key while clicking and dragging from a corner to resize it. Don't drag from a side because it will distort even if you are pressing the Shift key. The other thing I'm going to do is maybe rotate it around a little bit so everything's not straight up and down. Okay, I'll hit the Enter key on my keyboard, and I can see right now I have a little ghosted image around the outline, so the outline of my cupcake. So I am just going to go over that. Whoops. We want that with black and our brush. I'm going to increase the size of my brush a little bit. I'm working on that mask, and now I'm just going to kind of clean up that little ghosted outline out there. I might have to do a little bit more work on that, but that looks pretty good for right now. Okay, good with that. I'm going to place my next object in. File, place embedded. And I promise I won't make you watch me do all of these things. But let's go in, I'll place this book. My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice, so I chose that. There we go, place that in there. Again, I could do the same thing where I can select maybe I can magic wand and select the outside. That should work out pretty well. I'll just have to add to my selection a little bit. I'm going to use the regular lasso tool and just add those. Whoops, I forgot to invert my selection. So I just undid what I had just done. I need to go to select, inverse, and it inverted the selection. Now I can add these pages. And there we go. That's pretty good. I again will mask it out. Perfect. Not perfect, but you know, it's a good start. I'm going to reduce the size of that a little bit, and then I'll hit that check mark. One thing I want to show you right now is how we can edit the perspective on these. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and Perspective. Now with this tool, what I can do is I can change the perspective. So if I want to shrink the bottom of my book to look like it could actually be popping out of my head, so if the size is relative to my head, I don't want it too big because then it looks like it couldn't be popping out of my head. So I can change the perspective a little bit like that, reduce it down and or adjust it a little bit, something like that, and good. So now oh, I have this ghosted outline again. That's the trouble with going through that process the way I just did, because now I have to come back in and clean this up. So if you are noticing again that it's kind of taking longer to do the shortcut than it would to go about that the regular way, then go ahead and just use your magnetic lasso tool and create your selections and then mask from there. That might almost be easier. Okay, so now I need to move my cupcake. So I just selected my cupcake layer. I did that by right clicking on that cupcake, and then it shows me what layers are below where I clicked. I want to choose the cupcake, and I'm just going to move it up to the side here. The other thing I want to do is I want to overlap them, but I want the book under my cupcake. So I can just click and drag it down in my layers panel, and now my cupcake is on top of my book. Okay, so you need to repeat that process for all 15 of your objects. And then in the next video, we'll talk about the next steps.